So what do I do my first week of being retired from education? I go to an archery shoot, of course. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Grips Archery channel. As I just stated, I am headed down the road. I am going to my first national ASA ProAm in London, Kentucky. I'm meeting a friend of mine, Derek Craig, and this is going to be his first, I believe, ever national 3D archery shoot. And I have lots of IBO shoots. I've been shooting the IBO since the 90s. Any of you who read or listened to my book Behind the Riser, you are fully aware of that. But this is my first national ASA. I think I've shot one. I actually set up a bow and shot a local ASA qualifier, and the class that Derek and I are going to try out is the senior hunter, and I believe this is a relatively new or maybe brand new class to the ASA. So anybody over 50, we're allowed movable sights. Front bar can't be any larger than 18 inches. We can have a single back bar, no magnification in our sight, but we can use as I said, we can use a slider, if you will, a movable sight. So that is my setup, and I'm headed down the road. Looking forward to this. Looking forward to getting back out on the 3D course. I'm anxious to see how the ASA does their national shoots. Like I said, I'm a kind of a IBO veteran, and I'm pretty anxious to see what the ASA has to offer. Hopefully, this will be I'm looking forward to a fun event, and really, I'm hanging out with friends. Like-minded people, fellow archers, and I'm spending the weekend shooting my bow. So what are the odds that I won't have fun doing that? So with that being said, I'm headed down the road to London, Kentucky. Okay, so the rest of this video is going to be kind of tricky because we weren't allowed to video once we were on the course. So while I was headed to the shoot, I knew I wanted to do a video concerning the shoot. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted the video to be about, aside from, the ASA shoot back in London, Kentucky. And I knew Derek was going to want to do a video. And thankful for him, first of all, he provided most of the video footage that we have was provided by him. He is clearly, he's better at this YouTube thing than I am. He was way more prepared for collecting video and so on. So first of all, Derek, thank you very much for a lot of this video footage. But because this was his first shoot, big shoot, I figured his video, we talked about it a little bit, and I figured his video was going to be more about, hey, this is what the ASA is about, and how the time he had, and so on and so forth. So for any of you, as I mentioned earlier, for any of you who know me or have read my book, Behind the Riser, I'm an IBO guy. So I decided, with almost 30 years worth of IBO 3D experience, this video is going to be more about the similarities and the differences between the IBO event and an ASA event. So I'm not going to sing the praises or slam either of these organizations and make some kind of here's why this organization is better than this organization. I have thoroughly enjoyed the years that I've shot in the IBO, and I thoroughly enjoyed this weekend shooting in the ASA. For me, getting out there and shooting targets, I'm not concerned as much with the rules and everything else. If I'm out shooting my bow, and hanging out with friends and like-minded people, I'm having a good time. So there are lots of people who will bash one organization over the other. I will say it was nice to show up and see a shoot that attracted a lot of attention. The IBO numbers are down. I told Derek that that shoot there in London last weekend reminded me a lot of what I consider to be the heyday of the IBO. I mean, it was back in the 90s when the IBO was attracting a lot of archers. The numbers have fallen off for whatever reason, but what I want to do in this video is primarily just talk about the differences. So if you are like me and you're an IBO guy and you've been thinking about maybe trying the ASA, I'm going to talk about what you can expect when you go to the ASA, and vice versa. If you're an ASA person and you're thinking, hey, I want to try out the IBO, then this video will talk about the differences. Or if you're in the third camp, you have not shot any major 3D events, and you're thinking, do I want to shoot this? Do I want to shoot that? Next on my list is TAC. And I'm sure if I do a TAC event, I'll compare it to both the IBO and the ASA, and we can just have a 3-point comparison video. But that's what my goal for today is to just look at the differences between the two organizations. So the big difference right off the top between ASA and IBO is strictly unknown yardage. ASA has both known and unknown classes. This was the first time I went to a big shoot where I was totally allowed to pull a rangefinder out of my pocket and not only range the target, but talk to the other archers in my group about the ranges. And that, as I mentioned in the little truck piece, that is something different that I am not accustomed to. So that right off the top is one of the big differences between the two organizations. So Derek and I got down there on Thursday, and we got registered, and we then went out and shot the practice courses. And here's a small difference, but it is a notable difference between the IBO and the ASA. The IBO, being a bow hunter organization, has a set of courses that could probably be called practice courses. But they're known as the defense courses, and the proceeds, you pay extra to shoot them, just like the ASA. You pay extra to be able to shoot the practice courses, and then the IBO, you pay to shoot the defense course, and the proceeds from the defense course go to the Bowhunter Defense Fund. The money for the practice course and the ASA does not go to the Bowhunter Defense Fund. That money, I'm not exactly sure, probably goes back into paying for targets or goes into the association and might even go into the payouts. I'm not sure. If you're more experienced in the ASA and you know where that money goes and you want to comment below, please feel free, comment and let me know. But
Good shot, dude.
so similarities
Good
and
shot.
differences. You pay in the IBO, basically you can get a weekend pass and go as often as you want. You can pay as you go. You pay a few dollars and you just go through one time. But for ASA, you pay to practice and you can shoot that practice course as much as you like. So we ended up shooting probably 15 or so targets. We definitely shot all of course C, and I don't know if it was 10 targets or 12. It felt like 12. I wasn't really counting. And then we went over to B. There were 4, I think, practice courses. And then we went over to the B range and shot about half of them. And then we started to get tired, and we decided there's no point in if we're having trouble, holding the pin and staying on target. There's no point in practicing bad habits. So we went ahead and walked off and went back and checked into the room and got ready for the next day. So we showed up on Friday, and another difference between the ASA and the IBO is when you register, the ASA assigns you a shoot time, and once you're assigned, everyone that shoots at that time, they will then shotgun start. So, for example, I started at target 10 on both days. So that means my next target was target 11. We shoot 20 target courses. When I got to target 20, then I went back to target 1 and I finished up for the day at target 9. And those were my 20 targets. In the IBO, you can shoot when you want. You go to the tent to your course when you're ready. There are no assigned times, and everybody starts at target 1. You can pick which course. You're typically assigned 4 courses. A lot of times, one of them will be a 20 target loop, and then some of them will just be 10 target courses. And everyone starts at target 1. So there can be a backup depending on the year and the weather and the numbers. Long time ago, I think it was in 2000, one year at one of the IBO, I think it was at Bedford, Indiana. It had rained all day on Friday. Nobody got out and shot the course. I drove down on Saturday morning and went right on out to my course, and I waited over an hour after I was sent out to my course. I waited over an hour to shoot my first target, and it took 10 hours to shoot that 20 target course. Now, that is the extreme. I have never taken that long or even close to shoot 20 targets since then. But when numbers were up and nobody shot on the previous day, that is something that you can run into. ASA, though, you're assigned a shoot time and everybody shotgun starts. So that is another difference between the two organizations. And while we're talking about the courses, it's kind of hard to describe the difference in the way the organizations set their courses. So the analogy that I thought of was a golf course. So you can have a regular golf course, which is spread out and wide open, and you have you can be very far from other golfers. But and that would be kind of an IBO setup. The ASA setup is more of a miniature golf, where you're always pretty close to other archers. And not to say that the shots are any shorter, but the courses are usually more compact. The IBO, most of your shots will be considered a take bow, meaning everyone will take your bow to the target, score, and then you will take a trail off to the side and go shoot another target down that trail. And every now and then you'll have what is called a pull and return, where you shoot from the stake, you will go down to the target, score your arrows, and return to the stake and go down the trail to your next stake and target. Most of your IBO courses have very few pull and returns. The ASA is all pull and return, and you are always very close to other archers. So, and then the way those 20 targets are organized is really a pretty good idea. And they're all in a line. So we shot the power lines. We went right down the road, as you can see in these video clips. You can see that gravel road, and the courses were on either side of the road. So Derek and I shot E and F. E was on the uphill side and F was on the downhill side of that gravel road. And all of those, our stakes were right along the edge of the woods, and the targets were all into the woods. So you would think that if you started at 10, I would shoot then 11 to 20. And then when I got to 20, I would have to walk all the way back to number 1. But it wasn't that way. So they interlocked them so that you would skip every other target, because you would shoot 10 targets in one direction, and then you would turn around and shoot the next 10 going back in the opposite direction. So they were numbered, and it's kind of hard to explain, but so I wrote them on my whiteboard. So they were numbered like this. So if you started at number 1, then you would walk past number 20, target 20, to shoot number 2. And then you would walk past target 19 to shoot number 3. And then when you got down to the end, I started at 10, I shot 11, and then I turned around and shot 12, and then skipped target 9 to shoot 13 until I got down to this end and shot 20. And then I shot number 1 and then went to number 2. So I didn't have to shoot 20 here and then walk all the way back down the road to get to target 20, to get to target number 1. So it was kind of a pretty ingenious way to set up that course, and saved me a lot of walking. So that was one of the big differences in the way the courses were set up. We still did a lot of walking, but once we were on the course, we didn't have to go far. So one of the differences is, again, in an IBO, if you have a take bow kind of target, after you score your arrows, if there's a group behind you that's at the stake waiting to shoot, when you walk off and get to a safe distance, you would call clear, and then everybody knows that you're clear of that target, you're at a safe distance away, and those archers can then shoot that target. But for the ASA, and you can see here in this little video clip, as Derek and I went to pull the arrows off the practice course, you can see the next target is right there. So for safety reasons, obviously, you don't walk down to score and pull your arrows till both groups on either side of you are finished shooting, and they're going to walk down themselves. And so you can wait a little bit for each group. It's just a couple minutes. It's not that big of a deal, but it is a difference between the way the two organizations run their courses. And I did notice that there were quite a few people that had a variety of carts for their archery equipment. Now, as you can see in the video clips, I have an archery stool that I carry, my arrows. It acts as my quiver, and it has a place for me to sit, obviously. And I can carry some snacks and water and tools if I need them, a spare release. And so it's not all on my belt. And it comes in handy. when, you want to take a break and you want to sit for a minute. It's kind of nice to have. And on the IBOs, there sometimes those courses, the terrain is a little more challenging than than what I have seen in this course. I've heard that the terrain at the London course is one of the most challenging of the ASAs, and compared to what I have seen in the IBOs, that terrain was pretty mild to some of the terrain that I've shot in the IBOs, especially when you go to the World Championships and they are at a ski resort. You're going to have to deal with hills. I mean, it's just, you're at a ski resort. They ski downhill, so you're going to have to deal with it. And there have been times where they've actually strung rope from tree to tree that you can hold on to go down the hill to get to your next target. You hold on to that rope so you don't fall. And again, going back to my book, if you read my book, I fell at the 2012 World Championships, went down pretty hard. Thanks, Mike, for if you know the story, you get that reference. But it does happen because you're climbing down pretty steep terrain, crossing creeks, and so that is another difference. And I hear TAC, you better be ready to hike and cover a lot of terrain. So if having rougher terrain doesn't sound like something you're into, then take that into consideration. If you like the smooth, easy terrain, always, then use that to judge which organization you might favor. Now let's talk scoring and strategy. So the IBO has, and I'll put a picture up, the IBO has this as their scoring ring. Anywhere in the animal is a 5. The line that represents the lung cavity or thoracic cavity of that animal is an 8. It's worth 8 points. Centered in the middle of that thoracic cavity and usually just behind the front leg is a 10 ring. And then centered in the middle of the 10 ring is an 11 ring. So strategy for IBO is shoot for the 11 ring. You've got a margin of error. If you just miss the 11 ring, you're a 10, guaranteed. The ASA, though, has a lower and an upper 12 ring. And you can be just outside of the 12 and take an 8. So that's going to alter your strategy a little bit. And the way the ASA does it now is the lower 12 is always in play unless the archer calls the upper. So when the archer is at the stake at any time, he can turn and say, I'm shooting for the upper, or just say upper, meaning if I hit the lower 12, I don't get the 12. I'm going for the upper 12. And they're not in a line either. The lower 12, I believe, is back, and towards the back lower corner of the 10, and the upper 12 is to the front corner of the 10. So that is going to alter your strategy. If you want the 12, you're either shooting for the 12 or you're shooting for my strategy was to shoot for the 11 and rely on my mediocre archery skills to miss the 11 and get a 12. So I played it conservatively and I played it safe, especially in our class with no magnification in our sight. That pin on a 40-yard target is going to basically cover almost all of the 10 ring. So aiming at a 12, especially on a blank target, is not something that I had faith in my archery abilities to do. It cost me a couple times because someone had an arrow either in or very close to the 12 ring, and I shot for it, and it cost me some points because I was far enough away that I didn't get the 10. I was just low and took an 8, and I did that on a couple targets, and I made a couple bad shots after the first day. I dropped a lot of points, and they were almost all of them were on me. Well, they were all on me. A couple were because I made good shots, but I'm just was learning the strategy. I just made a pretty good shot, but just not quite good enough, and missed the 12 because I was actually shooting for the 12. And then a couple I just made bad shots. That's totally evident lack of practice before the shoot. That is the only thing I could say is I was just a little rusty and I didn't make good shots. 100% my fault. But on the second day, I said, okay, my strategy is to go to my IBO training and shoot 411s. And that was my goal. And I shot at all 20 targets. I shot for the 11. And I did much better on day 2. I went from dropping over 20 points on day 1 to only dropping 2 points on day 2. I had 3 8s and 2 12s. And so I shot a 198 on those 20 targets on course F on second day. And that made the ride home feel a little bit better, a little sweet redemption. So that's a notable difference in scoring and strategy. If I continue to shoot, which I probably will, I know I'm going to one more. I'm headed to Metropolis. Derek and I are going to meet. We're going to meet up with Nate Sellers of Average Jack Archery, and we're all going to hang out and we're going to go shoot Metropolis later this month. So I plan to shoot more ASAs, and I think I might make at least one of the IBOs this year. They have changed my beloved MBR class. It is no longer male bow hunter release. It is now modern bow hunter. And it is very similar to the equipment requirements for the senior hunter in ASA. 18-inch limit on front bar, no magnification on the lens. The two big differences, IBO says no fat shafts, 6 millimeter internal component shaft, and ASA, you're allowed the fat shaft. You have known yardage. IBO is unknown yardage. No speed limit in the IBO. Speed limit for ASA, I believe, is 290 for the senior hunter class. Coincidentally, the class, the MBR, now called Modern Bow Hunter, for IBO is strikingly similar to the classes and the rules that we had as part of the Mobile Hunter Expo, the dust off, which we are going to have another one. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking about getting into 3D, we're going to have an indoor 3D shoot. We will have a few shots beyond 40 yards. So it'll be a big, you'll have the same kind of ranges that you'll have at the outdoor shoots, but you'll be in the comfort of the Roberts Center. And we're going to have a pretty good payout, same as we had last year. It's going to be up there around that $1,000 range to win. And our class is very, very similar to the Modern Bow Hunter and the IBO. Interesting how the IBO came up with that class after we had our first dust off. I don't know. Are they copying us? Did they like the ideas we had for our classes? I don't know. They do say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, so we'll just take it for that. But anyway, Ryan Hart's, it'll be modified Fred Bear scoring. It'll be a lot of fun. So I will have another video, I'm sure, about that mark that down, end of July, dust off, Wilmington, Ohio, Roberts Center, come shoot. But the big picture here is, again, I like shooting my bow. I like going out and shooting 3D. I don't care what letters are in front of the organization that's hosting the shoot. If you're putting on a shoot and you got 3D targets, I'm probably going to come shoot it. It's a lot of fun. In almost 30 years of shooting, traveling, and shooting 3D, I have met a lot of great people. And this past shoot was no exception to the rule. The guys I shot with, Shane and Chevy, Jason and Jeff, super, super good dudes. I would not hesitate to shoot with any of those guys again. And Jeff, I felt bad. I felt bad about busting your arrow on course F until I saw the scores, and then I saw you beat me by 1. So I didn't feel so bad after that. But yeah, he put an arrow right in there, and I shot right. Great marker. I said, I'm just going to shoot at that arrow, and I did, and I blew his knock up and messed up the bushing on the back of his arrow. But I felt bad about that until I saw the scores, Jeff. And then I didn't feel so bad. You get me by a point. But anyway, just great guys. And I can think of no more than 2 or 3 people that in all of the years that I've been doing this and all the people that I've shot with, that I would not want to shoot with again. And the ratio is tipped heavily towards there being way more people that I got along with and would readily shoot with again, as opposed to just the 1 or 2 that I wouldn't want to shoot with again. We're all bow hunters. We're all archers. We're all like-minded people. It's just a great time to go get together and go shoot. And, Derek has become a pretty close friend. We only get to see each other. I live here in Southern Ohio. He lives in Northern Indiana. We only really get to see each other when we're both working at the Mobile Hunter Expo shows. And now that he has now taken an interest in shooting 3D and asked me to go with him, now we'll get to see each other a little more often. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So if you're on the fence about shooting 3D, one organization or the other, they both have the differences, their pros and cons to some people and their cons and pros to other people. It all depends on the event you want to shoot and how you want to challenge and push yourself. And again, the long and short of it is, you're out in the woods and you're shooting your bow and you're hanging out with good people. How bad could it be? It's just a great time. It is my golf. There are people that travel and play golf, and there are people that travel and bowl. There are people that travel and fly radio-controlled airplanes. Everybody has their thing. 3D archery is my thing. It's my hobby. It's something that I enjoy doing. So if you have the time and you have the money and you're looking for a good hobby to do in the off season, that can only help you become a more lethal bow hunter, then you should look at 3D. You're out there practicing shooting 3D targets, which is the closest you can get to practicing bow hunting that there is. So as always, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you later.